I think at the risk of murdering our own Pledge of Allegiance via Zoom, at least that's been my experience, we're going to forego that. You're certainly welcome to mute your video and do it yourself if you are so inclined, but every time I've tried to lead a meeting and do the pledge via this medium, it's ended up with a very disrespectful version of the pledge, so we'll forego that.
Thank you. Agreed.
With that, can you please call our first item?
The first item is considering approval for the meeting minutes of the May 30th, 2019 special meeting of the River City Regional Stadium Financing Authority.
Very good. Does any authority board member have any suggested change to the minutes? And if not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Kennedy.
It's been moved by board member Sandine and seconded by board member Kennedy. Roll call vote, please.
Board member Sandine.
Aye.
Board member Villegas. Vice President Cabaldon.
Yes.
Board member Kennedy.
Aye.
And President Cerna.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks. Next item, please.
Item 3 under new business is consideration of approval of budget for municipal administration expenses for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Madam Clerk, I think we missed item number 2.
Yeah, we have a report.
I apologize. Under reports, presentation of the treasurer's report for calendar year 2019.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So I'm Becky Robertson with the City of West Sacramento. This is a report that you guys are provided on an annual basis, which really just gives the authority some key information about the finances of the ballpark and how it relates to the different financing agreements that were put in place related to the bonds. So a couple important things to take note is included was the River City Baseball Investment Group audit and consolidated financial statements as provided by their independent auditor, Moss Adams. It shows that in calendar year 2019, the reserves were funded as specified under the lease agreement. There was no instance of default and confirmation of the payments of the annual debt service obligations. In addition, a substantial portion of the stadium revenues flow through a lockbox from which they're distributed primarily 50-50 basis to the River City Stadium management for operating expenses and to the bond trustee for payment of debt service. Funds sent to the trustee are first used for bond service or bond debt, and then to fund the various reserves. If there's any additional funds, they are returned to River City Stadium management for stadium operations. The letter that was attached to the agenda item is from BNY Mellon, which is the bond trustee, demonstrating that the transfer of the stadium revenues and debt service payments are occurring as they were designed. As of April 1st, 2020, the trustee had collected sufficient lockbox revenues to make both the May 2020 debt obligation and November 2020, as well as meet the reserve requirements. So then temporarily, all of the additional funds were returned to the River City companies. There is another item on today's agenda that is going to provide you guys an update on the impacts of COVID-19 and then the related public health orders on the baseball season, the ballpark revenues, and the upcoming debt obligations. But that was kind of the recap of what has happened in the last calendar year. So there's no action to be taken on this item, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thanks for that report. Any questions of staff?
I do, Mr. President.
Yeah, Director Cabaldon.
Thank you. So the amount's not consequential, but I'm just trying to get my head in using this information, so that since I know we're going to need it in the next item in particular. On the the funds flow into the reserve until it equals $3 million. And the amount that you said was in it as of December 31st was almost that, but it was shy of that by $30,000 and $600, something like that. So did that mean, like, is it close enough, or did that $30,000 is that an obligation to be paid in during 2020, or what's the relationship between those two if 3 million is the threshold and we're under 3 million, then if there were stadium revenues, would a portion of them accrue until we actually hit 3 million again, or how does that work?
I believe so. And then the letter that was from BNY was actually from April of this year, so 4 months after that audit. So within those 4 months, they probably generated enough to meet that cap, and in addition, have enough to cover the 2 debt service payments.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, we don't need to vote on that item. It's an informational item. Thank you for that. We'll go to our next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, consideration of approval of budget and for municipal administration expenses for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Who's going to lead off?
All right, you get me again.
Okay.
So this item deals with the municipal administrative expenses related to the Series 1999 bonds. The city establishes an annual budget to pay for such things such as the trustee bank fees, annual continuing disclosures related to the bonds, and for the occasional legal fees. Proposed budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 is $11,200, which is in agreement with the River City Stadium management, and is also consistent with the last few years of budget. So today we ask that you approve the administrative budget for $11,200 for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, seeing none, entertain a motion.
Move staff recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member Kennedy.
Second.
Seconded by Director Cabaldon. Roll call vote, please.
Yes. Vice President Cabaldon,
Aye.
Board Member Kennedy,
Aye.
Board Member Sandine,
Aye.
and President Cerna.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, next item, please.
Item 4, COVID-19 update on ballpark operations, revenues, and debt obligations.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Roberta Raper. I'm the Administrative Services Director for the City of West Sacramento. Before we jump into this, I think Mr. Savage and I are going to tag team this item as we did with the report. But I wanted to point out a couple of errors, and I think you guys are all up to speed on this. In the Treasurer's report, we talked about the revenue fund, the revenues being split 50-50 until such time there are 2 debt service payments included in that fund. And so in my report, you may see that there was a question about a November 2020 debt service payment. That's obviously covered with the revenues that are in the fund now. I guess the payments that become in question going forward are the May 2021 and the November 2021 payments. So I just wanted to make that clear before we get going on this. And I guess just to a little bit of background, I mean, we've given a little bit of information in the report. There is not a whole lot to update on from my perspective. I think Jeff's got some additional updates on how the season's going, but just wanted to put forward that we've been working together, trying to figure out kind of what all these reserve accounts are. How can we use them? You know, how can we do that and avoid default if there's issues, you know, bringing in revenues through the normal baseball season to cover things. And we're scheduling a couple of meetings to work with our financial advisor and look at options for restructuring or refinancing the debt. And also just looking at some other options that Jeff has brought up, good ideas that we just need to figure out how might we be able to implement some of these and bring some relief and also be able to continue meeting the debt service obligations. So with that, I think I hand it over to Jeff to give an update on what he's with the season and things that he's looking at, and then we can have a conversation, I guess, and talk about you know, the options and any questions that you might have related to that. So.
Got it. Thank you. So basically, to kind of summarize my report, you all are aware, obviously, that sports aren't occurring right now. I was hoping to have some more news this week. Major League Baseball, I was optimistic at one point, and my optimism is fading a little bit, but I was optimistic that the Major League Baseball and then the Players Association would agree to some sort of shortened season. And with that, if that were to happen, there could be a chance that we at the AAA level would be able to play, or we'd be given players to play with or have at our stadiums. And I went into it in my report and mentioned there was this concept of Major League Baseball rosters being expanded, and then another additional to 30 people, and then another additional 20 players on a quote unquote taxi squad. And so I've proposed to the Giants to let us host at least those additional 20 players. But since then there's been more momentum and push to actually have a AAA season if the Major League season were to occur. And so we're trying for that right now. In many stadiums, it would be played in front of empty crowd, no crowds. But definitely in other parts of the country, there would be crowds in the stadiums. And so I'm still waiting to hear back and get a little bit more information. Some of it depending on how these negotiations go at the Major League level. So that's one thing. We're also actively trying to schedule events at the stadium, or at least get a list of events prepared that we could potentially act upon. And so I'm working with the city at the moment to put together some guidelines that we'll submit to the county and perhaps get approval from the county to start small. So that's our goal, is to try to scrape by wherever we can. As of right now, the revenue fund is at 2.6 million. We're supposed to, by the time our next payments due, we're supposed to have approximately 3.6 million in the revenue fund. And at this pace, that will not occur. We do have cash on hand that we could supplement the missing $900,000 to be status quo come November. But then our problems will, if we don't have a baseball season, or if for some reason things spike in the winter and a 2021 season is in doubt, there'll definitely be a crunch on a cash shortage for sure. And so in anticipation of sort of the worst case scenario, I've been going through and trying to figure out, okay, what can we do, or what options are feasible? And so, Roberta and I have been talking. I have been looking at potential refinance options. There was a scenario of potentially prepaying everything, the bonds and the interest, and then potentially getting out of the lease altogether. And this would help us in a couple ways. Some of the restrictions that we're under would be eased if we didn't have a lease anymore. So we sort of looked into that option. There's some options with Congress. We're actively trying to get some financing through Congress to help us through all this. I'm looking to draw on get a letter of credit or a line of credit established. And in the report, there was reference to a lot line adjustment. We were going to put up land as collateral for this letter of credit, and it's land across the street from the stadium. One small problem: there is a sliver of River City Land Holding Company land as part of that parcel over there, and so we would need to get that piece out of River City Land Holding Company and into another LLC that's not encumbered by the bonds. So that's one option that we're looking at the moment. Trying to think of what else. So the bottom line is I'm sort of racking my brain. Oh, and another option is actually to actively go out and find all the bondholders and negotiate with them and try to obtain better terms with some of the bondholders, which, they're widely dispersed now. So that would be definitely an effort, but it's something that we may be able to pick off a few of the larger holders and get more favorable terms, or perhaps just buy them out altogether. So I guess the bottom line is I may be coming back to you guys at some point soon to approve or get some more feedback on one of these options as I continue to investigate different scenarios. So I know I just rattled off a bunch of things, and I still have other ideas as well, but does anyone have any questions for me at the moment?
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Mr. Savage?
I don't have a question, Mr. President, but I would just say I've been working off and on with Mr. Savage on this issue, and he's been well ahead of it all the way through, trying to come up with all the solutions that he's described. We've partnered with some folks in Congress to try to get this, some help. But I want to thank Jeff and his whole team for really trying to plumb through every possible option and be nimble through this process, and the partnership continues to be strong. Okay, I do have a question for Roberta, though, and that is, so the staff report focuses on the city's financial obligation, but for the authority, what's the authority's overall? It's the budget cost impact, and then by implication, what's the potential backstop portion for the county also?
Sure. So it's split. If the city and the county need to come in and help out, it's split a third for the city of West Sacramento and 2/3 for the Sacramento County. So the numbers that I had provided, again, we're looking at the November $2.6 million debt service payment. That one, as we've talked about, is covered. Overall, it's about $3.5 million a year between the principal and interest payment in November and the interest only payment in May. And that would be split 2/3 to the county and 1/3 to the city of West Sacramento. If we ended up having to go there. And I know for the city, I don't know what the county has done, but for the city, we have actually budgeted that and have funds set aside in the case that we need to backstop that debt. But our hope is evaluating all of our options and getting hopefully to where that's not something that we need to do, but obviously that's a consideration.
Okay, and then just a quick follow-up, just a procedure, since we haven't had many substantive reports in a long time. Just on this lens of it, just a reminder, it's important that the staff reports to the authority be framed for the authority and not for the city, and that the references to the city's legal counsel are the authority's legal counsel in these cases, and that we're cognizant of the entity that we're making decisions for. And I know that would be helpful for our partners from EOLO and from Sacramento too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see that Board Member Kennedy has his virtual hand raised.
Thank you, President Cerna. Jeff, a couple things. One is, this is kind of a sidebar, but I'm curious, have you guys taken advantage of the PPP funds available?
Yes, we have. We
Okay.
we were able to jump in on that pretty early, and now at this point, I could see us getting the whole amount forgiven. So that's positive news for sure.
Okay, thank you. And good. And secondly, is there anything that we as a board can do, particularly the elected members? I mean, let us know as far as dealing with our legislative or congressional contingent to provide support.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to reach out to. Thank you. I was going to reach out to a few of the surrounding Congress members to help get support for a bill that we are proposing. Congresswoman Matsui has signed on, but none of the other local congressmen. And so I was going to reach out again and pester Vera and Thompson and anyone else I could find to for them to sign on to this loan program that we're trying to get passed, and basically allow entities to borrow up to $25 million entertainment facilities. So that could be museums, stadiums, arenas, whatnot, that are under a certain revenue threshold. And so if this is successful, it could be a nice, a big shot in the arm for us to kind of get through this time period. And I would think a lot of other entities similar to ours would benefit from this as well. So I know that's a long answer to your question, but yeah, so that would be helpful, and I'm happy to send this information to you, and so you can understand what we're asking folks to sign on and support.
This has regional implications even beyond the stadium. So I would suggest that you do that, send us that information, and we make individual calls, but also that we do a joint letter from the board.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I was going to suggest that instead of feeling like you're pestering anyone, make it seem perfunctory, and perhaps with a letter from us, that'll be the way it's taken by those congressional members who haven't signed on yet.
That'd be much appreciated.
Good. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I was going to call on. He had a hand raised. Colin, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I just had to unmute. So I just wanted to add to that the county also budgets the 2/3 portion that they're responsible for annually as well. So just to add to that prior conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Capaldi?
Yeah, thanks. I actually did have a question for Jeff, and it's maybe would you mind sharing just a little bit of the landscape around the minor league situation more broadly? I mean, obviously we have a solid operation, well managed. We have a good fan base. We have these backstops in our cities, as in the county, for example. But we need other teams to play and a league to play. And so I wonder if you wouldn't mind giving just a quick update on both what's the status financially of some of the other teams who are in the same situation, but also the major league, minor league issues that have been at the forefront nationally.
Yeah. So I guess for starters, the financial status of other teams, I don't know a ton. I only hear rumors really about other teams and, potentially other teams filing for bankruptcy. Some of the smaller teams that were already on the chopping block, and I'll get more to that here in a moment. Some of them, I think, are the most vulnerable teams that were considering bankruptcy. A counterpart I was just talking to, they just pulled out a $4 million line of credit. Unfortunately, we have one of the trickier situations because of our bonds. There's no one for us to go negotiate with. Or if we do, it's a tough negotiation for us to go out and talk to these individual bondholders. A lot of the teams, and depending on where they are, they're kind of getting a reprieve for X amount of time from their cities or counties. So, in one sense, we kind of have it the worst out of a lot of teams. Luckily, financially we were very sound heading into all this, so we can fight through it all. But I've heard that there will be teams that disappear and don't make it through. I haven't heard about teams at the AAA level in fear of disappearing. So with that in the background, there's also a large negotiation going on between Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball. Our agreement is now up at the end of September, and Major League Baseball would like to cut teams from 160 down to 120 teams. And most of those revolve around, they're cutting low A teams. So there's several different levels. Just a quick refresher. There's like a low A team. There's sort of a normal A team. There's a high A team. Then there's double A, and then there's triple A. They're really looking to cut low A in certain parts of the country. So that won't impact us. But there was a big push at one point to try to save all of these low A teams. And we actually got a lot of support from Congress to save these teams. Well, since the coronavirus has come, a lot of these teams aren't going to make it anyhow. And so that push to save a lot of these teams has kind of faded when everyone is just trying to survive and get through this. So there's, we're in negotiations right now with Major League Baseball. Those aren't going very quickly because they have some other things to solve as well right now. And namely, they're just trying to start playing again. So we're sort of on the back burner at the moment. And so hopefully they can get going and our negotiations could heat up a little bit more before the September deadline when basically it's, there's no agreement in place. So we're sort of waiting to hear more. And that's kind of basically it. We're waiting at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for Jeff? Let's see. That's an update, correct? No, we don't have to take action on that?
Yeah, this is an update. Just wanted to provide sort of an update of where we are today, the things that we're looking into. I know that we typically have another meeting scheduled later in the year. September is in my head. For some reason, that typically gets canceled because there's no business, but we will for sure be back with an update at a future meeting, just to let you know of all the things that we're looking at and what the options are ahead of us. And at that point, probably to take some action. For today, just an update.
Great. All right, very good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe our only other agenda item is comments from the public on matters not on the agenda. Is that correct?
No comments were received.
Okay, very good. Any final thoughts or comments from board members? Oh, Supervisor Kennedy, I see your hand's up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Jeff, you and I already conversed about this, but I just wanted to, in front of the board, say that I recently sat in on a Zoom classroom meeting of a couple of special ed classes in which Dinger showed up as a surprise. And it was quite inspirational. It meant so much to kids who are in real flux right now. So on behalf of the school community, I want to say thank you to the River Cats for being a great participant and a great community leader.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the kind note that you sent at the time, and that was well received. We had a lot of requests for Dinger to join in on some classrooms. So, kind of doing what we can to stay relevant and stay top of mind when we can't have people out here at the Sutter Health Park.
It meant a lot, and it meant that I'm going to stand in line in the parking lot for a hot dog sometime soon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did he wear his mask?
He actually was asked the question, "Is your costume hot?" And he had his whiteboard to answer and said, "What costume?"
Of course. What a silly question. Okay, very good. All right. If there's no further business, everyone, please continue to stay safe and healthy. And with that, this meeting of our authority is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.